What if Pokemon who evolved just once evolved twice instead? Not every Pokemon gets to evolve the same amount of times, so in this video I am going to be giving some evolutions to some Pokemon who only get to evolve once to see what it would be like if they evolved again. And we're going to begin with Lgm and Beheeyem. This is what it might look like if these two alien Pokemon ever got another evolution. With being aliens and being based around Area 51 and all those conspiracies and stuff, these two have a pretty cool inspiration. But the thing is, they're also pretty forgettable because they don't really have anything other than their inspiration that makes them stand out too much. Therefore, I think they would be a great candidate for an evolution, and this is a design that I think would be pretty cool. I have named it Greywind, which comes from Grey and Alien, but it's spelled phonetically just like the names of Lgm and Beheeyem are. Those two are also named after specific monikers for aliens too, such as Little Green Men in Lgm's case, and Bug-Eyed Monster in Beheeyem's case. So Greywind is named after a Grey, which is another stereotypical depiction of an alien that has gray skin and the big head, and is what a lot of people think of when they think of an alien. That is also why Greywind is gray in color, and it's also gray because its design in general is inspired by Lgm's beta design that we just recently got the chance to see in the most recent beta Pokemon leak. I really like the look of this design, not only because of the color, but also because of the more monstrous type of look it's got going for it, as opposed to the more humanoid look that the final design has. And I figured, given that they are aliens, an evolution of these two could basically turn into anything, and something that feels all the more alien I thought would be fun and provide the right amount of pizzazz, if you will, that these Pokemon could use. It also gains the Dark type for some added pizzazz as well, and also because of that more monstrous appearance that it takes on. Additionally, due to aliens often being perceived as evil or as a threat to us humans here on Earth who don't want to have our planet invaded, the Dark type is all the more of a fitting type for this kind of Pokemon in my opinion. Also, while Beheeyem evolves from Lgm at level 42, I also think that it would be awesome if Beheeyem evolved into Greywind at level 51 to reference Area 51 once again. I know that would only be a 9 level jump from evolution to evolution, but I think it would be super fun, and overall, I think something like Greywind would be really cool to see happen someday. The next Pokemon we're going to look at, though, is Breloom, and this is what I imagine a Breloom evolution could look like. I've always really enjoyed this Pokemon, and I've always thought that it would be really great for it to get an evolution or a new form of some kind, because 1, it's a really cool Pokemon, and 2, it would obviously help to make it all the more viable. This particular design that I've come up with is named Mycolodon, coming from mycology, which is the study of fungi connecting to the mushroom theme, and Dawn, referring to it as the boss of this evolutionary line. It also falls in line with the dinosaur theme as well that these Pokemon have, since Dawn is also used in some dinosaur names, like with the Iguanodon for instance. And that helps it to more directly bring the whole dinosaur thing to life with these Pokemon. You can kinda see it in Breloom's design, but it mostly just kinda looks like an ambiguous creature as far as what it's supposed to be. And Shroomish, believe it or not, is actually supposed to have a bit of a dinosaur egg inspiration as well, which can be very easily missed because you're just focused on the whole mushroom vibe. So having those elements be put on the forefront in this final evolution, and just having them be fully realized, is what this design is all about. It does remain a grass fighting type, but like I mentioned, Mycolodon is all about helping to make Breloom viable, so its stats would gain a pretty sizable boost, and I imagine that they would be somewhere around the 520 or the 530 mark. I could also see this evolving from Breloom with the use of a leaf stone, since the leaf stone looks quite a lot like a fossilized leaf, which obviously fits the dinosaur vibe and the grass typing of this Pokemon. So this is another evolution that would be amazing to see someday, but it's not the only Pokemon in that category. Pyroar would also be an incredible candidate for an evolution, and while it's pretty dang likely in my opinion to also get a Mega Evolution fairly soon in Pokemon Legends ZA, since it's Lysander's signature Pokemon, that is still currently up in the air as of this moment, so we're gonna go ahead and imagine what it would be like with a full-blown evolution. This is Mantiroar, and this one is personally my favorite of the video, because, I mean, just look at it. A big shout out goes to my good friend Rgreywind, by the way, for all the artwork of the designs that you're seeing in this video, and you can give them a look if you would like with the links in the description. Mantiroar is based off of a fairly popular idea that was floated around for Pyroar around the time of X and Y's release, and that was that it could either have a Mega or a full-blown evolution that is based on a Manticore. A Manticore is a mythological creature with the body of a lion and the tail of a scorpion. And given how cool that description is, and that Pyroar is already based on lion, you can pretty easily see why that sounds like a match made in heaven. Additionally, due to the Manticore's mythological nature, this Pokemon also becomes part Fairy type and is now Fire Fairy, which is both a really cool type combo in my opinion, and also it's an unused one to this point, which basically makes pretty much everything about this concept insanely epic. Along with the Manticore aesthetic, this design is also based on a king as well, since Pyroar is known as the royal Pokemon, and that is possibly due to lions, which it is based on, being known as the kings of the jungle. That is why Mantiroar has gained a long, kingly beard upon evolving, as well as white hair, in order to visualize this inspiration, and on top of that, it also adds some age and a sense of wisdom to the design as well, which I feel like helps it to feel all the more like a true step up from Pyroar. Obviously, however, this is based on the male form of Pyroar, and for the female form, I imagine that it naturally would be based on a queen. And while it also being based on a Manticore would obviously be cool as well, I had the thought of it also possibly being based around something else instead, which would then give it a different secondary type compared to the male Mantiroar, so that each form basically had their own unique traits to offer, and so that this would feel all the more like a true branched evolution. So if you guys have any ideas what a female Mantiroar could be and what type it could have, be sure to let me know in the comments, because I'd love to hear your thoughts. The name obviously comes from Manticore and Pyroar, and as far as an evolution method, I feel like a Pokemon this special looking would need a special, more signature method of evolution, like maybe with a custom item, or possibly leveling up while knowing a certain move. This is another thing that I would love to hear your guys' ideas on as well, so be sure to let me know, but regardless of how it might evolve, this is something that I would absolutely love to see Pyroar officially evolve into. If you have been enjoying these evolutions, consider checking out my merch store to help support the channel and videos like this. It makes content like this possible, and all of the merch is really cool too because it features the Fakemon from all my videos. There's an adorable Narwade plush from my Pokemon Cardinal series, a Fulkachi plush from my Histrobi Chronicles project, which also comes with a limited edition promo card, and there's also trading card booster packs featuring my Fakemon from the Histrobi Chronicles trading card game that I'm working on. It's all really cool and really well made stuff, and every ounce of support goes right back into making content for you guys. So give that a look with the link in the description, and as always, thanks a ton for all your support. Like Breloom before it, another Pokemon that I feel could benefit from the boost that an evolution would bring is Magcargo. It's a pretty well-liked Pokemon, but it's not anything that most people are realistically going to use because it doesn't really have the stats to back it up. But an evolution could obviously change all of that and help to make this line a little more usable. With that said, I would like you to meet Magmalt. Design-wise, the idea behind this evolution is that it follows the pattern of its pre-evolutions. Slugma began as a purely lava slug, and then Magcargo added a shell of hardened rock upon evolving. So Magmalt has a body that is covered even further by that hardened magma, and the idea is that its body is slowly cooling off and solidifying. This focus on its body becoming more rocky also inspired the idea that it could become a tanky, more defensive Pokemon. Magcargo already has 120 in defense, so bumping its stats up to around 510 or so, with a focus on its defensive stats as well as its HP, could hopefully help to give it a little bit more of a viable role. There is, however, still going to be one problem with this Pokemon outside of just its stats, and that is the fact that since this Pokemon would still be Fire-Rock type just like Magcargo, it would also still be 4 times weak to water, which is basically an unavoidable death sentence, especially with how common water types are. So, in order to help Magmalt deal with this issue, I decided to also give it a new ability, which I am calling Evaporation. This would act as basically a water-type version of Mimikyu's Disguise ability, and would give Magmalt the ability to withstand one water-type attack without taking any damage. That way, at least it could potentially stall or stay on the field just a little bit longer without immediately fainting or having to switch out whenever a water-type Pokemon came into play, and would hopefully help to give these Pokemon just a little bit of the support that they need. Finally, one way that I could see this Pokemon evolving from Magcargo is if it leveled up while it was asleep. This might be kinda tricky to pull off, admittedly, but it would be a reference to one of Slugma's Dex entries where it says that this Pokemon never sleeps because if it stopped moving, its body would cool and harden, which is obviously the whole concept behind this evolution. So that would be kinda neat, and all things considered, I think Magcargo getting an evolution would be both needed and pretty cool at the same time. And along those lines, another Johto Pokemon that still has some room to grow is Xatu. Both Natu and Xatu are pretty unique and interesting, but they tend to not get as much shine as a lot of other Pokemon, and that could be greatly helped by giving them an evolution. So that is what I have done with Xanadu. This evolution concept takes what Xatu does and brings it full circle in a way that can fully realize its concept while also adding that interesting flair that these Pokemon could use. For starters, Xanadu becomes a psychic fire type upon evolving, and this fits in rather well thanks to Xatu's inspiration. Xatu is based in part around the concept of sun gazing, which it is mentioned to do in its Dex entries, and we even see it doing it in certain places, such as the Mystery Dungeon games. Sun gazing is a practice that is said to be able to grant supernatural powers, so the idea behind Xanadu is that it has finally realized those powers and has gained the fire type as a result, which naturally comes from the sun connection. Another thing that Xatu is also based on is totem poles, which is something else I also wanted to continue to incorporate here, which is why Xanadu has a more rigid design, and it also kind of looks like it's the top part of the totem pole, which makes sense for this Pokemon being a final evolution. One of my favorite parts about this design, though, is the name. Because with Xatu obviously having a very unique name, it was hard to come up with something to follow that up, but Xanadu ended up being perfect. It obviously begins with an X to match Xatu, and then it also primarily derives from the word Xanadu, which is defined as an idyllic place or somewhere that is extremely beautiful and opulent. It then from there also pulls directly from the name Xatu as well to essentially mean that this is an idyllic form of Xatu, which is exactly what it is based on the concept. And then the name also even contains Xatu's name within it as well. So it really does bring this line together full circle in just about as good of a way as you possibly could, in my opinion. And due to all the focus on the sun that this Pokemon has, I think it would only be fitting to have it evolve from Xatu with the use of a Sunstone, which just adds even more to how well this design comes together, in my opinion, and shows how well a Xatu evolution could really work. Which of these evolutions do you think is the best though? Which one would you want to happen for real? Be sure to let me know in the comments, and thank you guys so much for watching. I really appreciate it, and until the next one, as always, I will smell you guys later.